Hello and welcome back to my channel Elle History. This is a Once Upon a Woman video on the kind of enigmatic and also problematic Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. I mean, when you learn about French history and you're a French citizen, Marie Antoinette from a very young age was completely vilified. When I learned about Marie Antoinette, I was about, probably 6, and I went to the beautiful palace of Versailles, and I thought, wow, she was so horrible. She didn't understand the people's fate and what they were living through, and she was so disconnected with the reality. And then you want to learn more about historical character, and as usual you realize that some myths need to be debunked, and it's exactly what we're going to do in this video on Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette was born on 2nd November 1755, and she was guillotined on the 16th of October 1793. She was an Archduchess of Austria, and she was one of the youngest children and the youngest daughters of Empress Marie THERESA and Emperor Francis I. And what's so interesting as well is the relationship between Marie Antoinette and her sisters, and more particularly Maria Carolina, who was going to become Queen of Sicily and Naples. And I think that is so interesting that we dismiss her relationships with her siblings, because they played a huge part in her fate and how she's going to react to the French Revolution. It's so interesting is that Marie Antoinette, or Marie Antonia, was not meant to be Queen of France. Actually, she had older sisters that were supposed to be, the ones going to the magnificent court of France. And it was not something that was on the cards for her. And yet, because fate decided otherwise, her sister died, or too ill, or was scarred by smallpox, it was Marie Antoinette who was chosen to go to the court of France and to become the Dauphine of France. And that is absolutely remarkable, because it's a twist of fate that no one saw coming. In France, I'm giving you something here, we love criticizing Marie Antoinette. We think that she was vain, that she was disconnected with people, and that she didn't understand, what was really going on for her people and in the countryside of France, for the peasants, for the farmers, but also even for the little bourgeoisie, as they say. What's so very interesting is that Marie Antoinette, of course she didn't know. First of all, she's from one of the most powerful royal European families. She's from the Habsburg dynasty, and she's going to be married to another great royal family, the Bourbons of France. So obviously she was completely disconnected with what was the daily life for a regular person. Yet, what's also so interesting is the fact that her education, she lacked so much in terms of being educated. She was not the best at reading, writing, or speaking different languages, but she loved music, she loved entertainment. And what I find so interesting with Marie Antoinette is the fact that yes, she was absolutely frivolous, but she was taught to be that way. And in many ways, when she was sent to France, she was forced to step up to this Versailles style. So it's almost if she had no choice, if you see what I mean. And what's so interesting for me is that yet Marie Antoinette was also someone very generous, very compassionate. She did care, she did lots of charity works. She did try so hard to reach out to the people and what they needed. And she never said the famous saying, "Let them eat cake." She never said it, but it was part of a propaganda around her dark legend. And if you know about dark legends and queens, you know that French queens often are absolutely vilified. It was the case for Catherine de Medici, and it is the case for Marie Antoinette, and it is also due to the fact that obviously there were foreigners. There are two interesting facts about Marie Antoinette. The first one is the fact that I said she was a very generous and compassionate person. But what do I mean here? Well, I mean that she refused revenues from the customary Queen's Bell tax because she knew that the people who were supposed to pay for it could not afford it. So we cannot say that she was careless, and we cannot say that she did not care about the well-being of her people. Maybe she could have done more. Regardless, you know, as a Queen of France, and given, you know, what they believed in divine right, absolutism, and yes, prestige, glory, all of this. I mean, let's face it, she stepped into Versailles, right? And Louis XIV had spent like so much money, incredible amount of money on this palace. And there was a reason for it, because royal authority, royal power were very intertwined with wealth and money and prestige. So here it was not that surprising that Marie Antoinette was just following the steps of everyone else before her. But this is why when she refused that queen bell tax, she showed kind of her, you know, human side, where she understood that others were not as, you know, favored, were not as lucky as she was. Marie Antoinette was also falsely accused of being part of the affair of the diamond necklace around 1784-1785, where it created so much hatred against her. The story is, Louis XV of France bought this amazing diamond necklace to his mistress, Madame du Barry. And because it took so much time to make it, it never happened. And then it was said that Marie Antoinette wanted the necklace for herself when she actually refused it twice, and that she wanted the necklace and didn't want to pay for it. This was just her detractors accusing her of things like that. And actually, it came from the fact that her signature had actually been forged by Jeanne de Valois-Saint-Rémy. So what is so funny is, like, it shows again that, you know, Marie Antoinette was kind of the symbol of wealth, of glory, of everything that was wrong in France, because the people were suffering. And as a result, she was called Madame Deficit. In 1788, there was a very bad crop in France, and that's where it started everything. Like, the hatred against the royal family, the hatred against the Queen specifically, really started. Actually, after her death, Thomas Jefferson said if there had been no queen, there would have been no revolution. So the blame of the revolution was falling down on Marie Antoinette. And sometimes she was even more attacked than Louis XVI, who was also vilified for, you know, putting his country into poverty. But what's so interesting here is that we tend to forget that it was also an economic situation and a political situation, and that this revolution is the revolution of the little bourgeoisie. It's not really the revolution of the people. It is, you know, a class conflict, really, and they were just trying to bring down the very wealthy. What touches me with Marie Antoinette is her, as I said, is her good side, when she actually showed a lot of interest in doing charity works, when she refused the Queen Bell tax. But also, I'm very fond of her because of her relationship with her sister, who was 3 years older, Maria Carolina, who became Queen of Sicily and Naples. I think we tend to dismiss that the relationships with her siblings played a huge part in the revolution. She came from a family where they were all very powerful. They had been placed all around Europe, and she was obviously very close. So when she, you know, suggested to Louis XVI that they should run away, that they should flee and to go back to Austria, to go back into safety, we blame her because we see here an act of treason. What I see is an act of despair, trying to find a way when she knows that everything is going bad, when, you know, when they want a constitutional monarchy, but she can still hear the thoughts of a republic, meaning the end of monarchy, meaning the end of her and her husband. She does reach out to her brother and wants a way out, and she's blamed for this. But in many ways, this is not surprising that with her connections and with her relationships, she's exchanging letters with Maria Carolina. And here it's like we see her as this kind of traitor to her country, but we tend to forget that her country is already against her and that she's left with no choice, probably scared of losing her life or losing her husband. So this Varenne, you know, kind of escape, failed escape, because they get caught and brought back to Paris. is not something I think we should blame her on this. I think we need to understand the psychology behind it, and that it is not something that is that surprising that she's tried to save her life, her children's lives, and her husband's life. For me, the most touching thing about Marie Antoinette is the letter she sent to her children just before her death, just before being guillotined in 1793. Her letter shows compassion, humility, and true love for her children, and it is actually very moving. So, known as the widow CAPET, because, or CAPET in French, because she's no longer a queen in 1793, her husband had been guillotined in 1793, widow CAPET, or Marie Antoinette, wrote to her sister-in-law, Madame Elisabeth, who was Louis XVI's youngest sister. In her letter to Madame Elisabeth, there's something very moving because this letter is actually for her children. Madame Elisabeth was in charge, well, it was believed that she was in charge of the children. Let them both reflect on what I have unceasingly taught them, that virtuous principles and the exact performance of every duty are the first basis of life, that their happiness will depend on their mutual affection and confidence. Let my daughter feel that, considering her age, she ought always to assist her brother with such advice as a reflection on her superior experience may suggest. Let my son, in his turn, show his sister every attention and kindness that affection can inspire. In a word, let them both feel that in whatever situation they may be placed, they will not be truly happy, but by being united. Let them take example from us. And in a very moving sentence, she said, let my son never forget the last words of his father, which I empathetically repeat to him. Let him never seek to revenge our death. Here we have it. We have Marie Antoinette who accepts her death, who accepts the end of her life, and who says goodbye to her children. She has 3 children, but the youngest is obviously not ready to be able to read or to understand what she's saying. So she's really focusing on, on the 2 eldest ones. But it is so moving that her thoughts are about peace, it's about principle, it's about learning that they need to be united, that they need to be together. And I think here we can draw parallels with her sisters and her brothers, the way she was united with them. And I think it just gives a glimpse into Marie Antoinette, the woman behind the frivolous queen. So was she a victim or was she a villain? I think neither. She was just a woman who was not really well educated to become Queen of France, who was not supposed to be Queen of France. In the end, had to step up and be this Queen of France. But also what's so interesting is that obviously that fate of, the glory, the prestige, the luxurious life, and then the end as widow CAPET, losing absolutely everything. I want to remember her for that, for the humility and the compassion that she actually had. And I hope that here I have kind of, help you understand who Marie Antoinette was. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, this Once Upon a Woman video. If you liked it, please give the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you next time for another Once Upon a Woman video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!